Feel the hush of dawn in the castle courtyard, the echo of hooves fading as the kitchens stir to life. Pots clatter, fires crackle, and the scent of roasting meat mingles with fresh herbs plucked just moments ago. Behind heavy oak doors, a world of flour dust and sizzling fat unfolds. A low hearth fire glows amber as a cook slides a copper cauldron into its embers, the metal's rim humming against the stone. Nearby, a wooden bench bears bowls heaped with chopped onions, carrots, and leeks, each vegetable trimmed and scrubbed until its colors gleam. A steady hand reaches for a leather pouch of peppercorns, spilling a dark rain into a shallow pan of bubbling broth. The air ripples with gentle clinks as a ladle stirs, coaxing flavor from marrow bones and root vegetables. In the corner, a scullion kneels before a worn board, folding pale wedges of pastry until they form neat crescents. Wisps of steam curl from a small brazier where suet renders to liquid gold, destined to seal pies packed with game birds and aromatic mushrooms. The scullion's breath is soft as he presses dough edges with practiced fingers, sending a faint pop echoing through the stone chamber. Each movement is purposeful, a ritual honed by generations. Above, a low flicker of torchlight dances on rough, hewn beams as senior cooks survey their domain. One grips a long iron spatula, flipping thick slices of pork belly over glowing coals. The meat sizzles, fat spitting in tiny bursts, each pop answered by a careful tilt of the blade. He lifts a piece to his nose, nods approvingly at the smoky aroma, then brushes the meat with a mirepoix glaze, onion, celery, and carrot softened in white wine. Under his gaze, the brazier's glow deepens, and the castle's lords will soon taste the fruits of this controlled chaos. At a stone sink, a pair of kitchen-maids scrub heavy cauldrons with oat straw brushes. Water sloshes from lead-lined basins as suds form in swirling currents. One hums a low melody, an old tune about young peasants dancing at harvest, while the other rinses her brush and sops up sudsy water with a rag. The rhythm is soothing, the simple song a backdrop for chores that must be done before the next feast. On a distant table, wooden bowls cradle creamy porridge, barley steeped overnight in sweetened milk and drizzled with honey. A cook ladles the porridge into hollowed gourds, topping each with toasted almonds and shards of dried fruit. The clatter of spoons striking wood echoes softly as one hand swirls cinnamon into a pale swirl and another sprinkles rosewater petals. Each bowl becomes both sustenance and ceremony, meant to fortify nights before council and to delight gentle ladies seeking comfort in winter's chill. Beyond the main hearth, a silent alcove houses the pastry station. Dough rests in cloth-wrapped mounds, rising slowly as yeast breathes life into each cell. Beside them, squares of latticework crust await sweet fillings of spiced apples or preserved cherries. A knife glides through softened butter, scoring patterns that will crisp to golden lattices. The gentle scratch of blade on wood is a soft refrain, punctuated only when the master baker lifts a dome of proofed dough and slides it onto a floured peel. With a deft wrist, he nudges the loaf into a brick-lined oven, where its crust will crackle and brown. Meanwhile, toward the rear of the kitchen, casks of mead and ale stand on wooden racks. A brewer in woolen surcoat leans in to test the frothing head of a new batch, dipping a glass flagon beneath the lip of the barrel. Bubbles rise, and he inhales the yeasty perfume, eyes half closed in contemplation. The sweet honeyed tang will soften when mixed with spiced wines later, but for now, it nourishes weary laborers as they toil. A soft click of tapwood against barrel rings out when he seals the cask, and the brew's promise lingers in the air. Around the central pillar, apprentices scurry with slate platters, ferrying dishes to antechambers where pages and squires taste each bite. One stoops to hand a wooden bowl to a young page, who presses fingers to lips in solemn thanks. The page's gaze drifts curiously to a simmering skillet where tiny fish lay crisping in a pool of butter. A moment's reverence, then a single fish is scooped into his bowl. He retreats, eyes bright, as the apprentices return to the hearth's warmth. Above all, the rhythm of the kitchen is measured by its leaders' quiet commands. A head cook's finger taps on a map of daily provisions hung on the wall, flour deliveries due at cockcrow, fresh venison, transported by cartmen, before midday, salted fish arriving in barrels by evening. His voice is low but firm. Stoke the coals. Bring more water for the pudding. Mind the blade's edge. Each instruction is a note in an orchestral score, ensuring that every element harmonizes. In these moments, the castle kitchen becomes more than a backroom of spills and soot. It transforms into a sanctuary of creation where simple GR, ains and salted meats attain new life through fire and skill. Each clink of spoon on iron, each swirl of gravy ladled into a tureen, is a tribute to countless hands that coaxed flavor from earth and field. And as the smoke drifts up the flue, carrying with it the promise of feast and conversation, you feel yourself drawn into the hearth's embrace, ready to taste, to savor, and to sleep with dreams of cinnamon and roasting venison. Steam rises in gentle spirals as the day's tasks wind down, the hearth's glow fading to embers that crackle beneath a last pot of onion and leek soup. A cook lifts the lid, inhaling the savory bouquet before ladling pale broth into a row of pewter bowls. Each bowl catches the firelight in soft reflection, tiny moons of warmth ready for tired mouths. Nearby, a scullion gathers emptied dishes, stacking them with a measured rhythm. The scrape of wooden bowls against stone sinks echoes like a soft farewell to the day's clamor. In a shadowed nook, two kitchen maids exchange quiet gossip. One leans close, voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Did you hear Lady Helena fainted at table when they served the swan?" The other's eyes widen, nodding as she rinses a stew pot. "Aye," she murmurs. "The bird's plumage was said to be as white as snow, and they roasted it whole." She shivered at the sight. Their laughter, hushed and soft, drifts upward, mingling with the scent of rosemary left wistfully on the chopping block. At the pastry bench, the master baker inspects the day's last creation. A towering pyramid of sugar-glazed buns flecked with currants. He adjusts a sprig of fresh mint atop the stack, then steps back to admire the effect. His apprentices circle the table, eyes alight, as he slices a bun in half, steam curling from its fluffy interior. They pass the halves around, each apprentice biting into the sweet crumb and smoothing spilled sugar from their tunics with small, satisfied grins. The sound is a tender crunch, nearly lost beneath the dying crackle of coals. Elsewhere, a brewer descends into the cool cellar, where the air is thick with the promise of fermented oak. He taps open a new cask of spiced wine, honeyed mead infused with cloves, ginger, and crushed juniper berries. The deep red liquid flows into a wooden cup, swirling violet tones under the lantern's glow. He tips the cup to his lips, letting the warmth spread from tongue to chest. A contented hum rises, soft as distant bells, before he seals the tap and retreats up the ladder. Above the main hearth, a century of smoke keeps vigil in the flue, funneling scents of thyme and sage into the castle's hallways. Courtiers in velvet gowns and silken doublets pause in passing, noses lifted to catch the aroma that promises both comfort and ceremony. A young scullion watches them glide by, clutching a battered pot lid, and wonders what it must feel like to dine where the flicker of candlelight dances across goblets of gleaming silver. He tightens his grip on the lid, pride flaring at being part of the unseen ballet that makes such feasts possible. In the far corner, a scribe sits at a small desk, quill in hand, recording the day's menus and expenses. His parchment is filled with neat columns: 4 loaves of rye bread, 6 pheasants, 2 barrels of salted herring. By his side, a curious apprentice peeks over his shoulder, marveling at the looped strokes of each letter. The scribe pauses, offering the apprentice the quill. The boy's hand trembles as he inks his first flourish, a shaky but earnest A before breaking into a broad grin. A flicker of mentorship passes between them, binding the kitchen's memories to future generations. The castle's bells toll for dusk, a reminder that the hall will soon host evening prayers. An elderly cook dips a small brass censer into embers, dragging trailing smoke into the altar alcove. The incense mingles with the lingering scent of roasting and stewing, blessing the convergence of hearth and hearthside. The cook closes his eyes, murmuring a silent invocation for protection and plenty. When he opens them, the embers glow faintly, as if sharing their fierce heartbeat with his own. Back by the main fire, the head cook surveys the day's remains. A stack of wooden platters with mere crumbs and a few stray cherry pits, copper pots wiped nearly gleaming, and an array of spoons and ladles aligned like soldiers standing at ease. He taps the rim of a pot with his spoon, metal singing a clear note that cuts through the hush. At once, scullions and apprentices spring into motion, gathering tools and stoking the fire to life. The kitchen, though weary, breathes in unison, ready to transform the remains of today into tomorrow's promise. Outside, the moon glimmers on the castle stones, and a faint wind carries the distant call of a nightingale. A solitary cook pauses by the open door, pressing a gloved hand against the rough timber. He peers into the courtyard, where guards patrol in rhythmic steps. For a moment, the TLE seems suspended between day and night, its walls holding centuries of stories in silent reverence. He inhales the cooler air, relief, and satisfaction intertwining in his chest. Another day of feasting concluded, another chapter added to the kitchen's grand chronicle. As the last embers fade, a hush settles soft as snowfall over the workspace. The pots hang from iron hooks, shadows dancing in their curves. A final whisper passes among the cooks. Tomorrow we roast boar. At the mention of boar, a ripple of excitement stirs. Even in weariness, the promise of a new challenge ignites a spark of anticipation. Footsteps retreat up the spiral stair, and at last, the kitchen stands empty, but alive with echoes. The ashes rest gently in the hearth, waiting for fresh logs. The scent of thyme, sage, and honey lingers in the air like a lingering chord. In this sanctuary of stone and flame, human hands have woven sustenance and community, transforming Earth's humble offerings into moments of camaraderie, flavor, and ritual. May these walls remember every clink, every whispered secret, and every breath drawn in steam and smoke. For within the medieval castle kitchen, the humble act of cooking becomes an anthem to life itself, a soft spoken tour into worlds of warmth, labor, and the sweet resonance of shared meals.